So you and I are in a fight today, Alice.
We are? I
No,
didn't
we
know we
were.
were in a fight today.
We were. Remember when you were yelling at me earlier today during my show
Oh
as
yeah.
I'm talking
Oh yeah.
to a guy
Oh yeah,
on the
that
air
fight.
from Ukraine, talking about the people who was talking, his family and the things happening there. Meanwhile, text by text come in. It was my wife yelling, which shows on my computer that I use, and there's no getting away from it. So then, and I'm blaming this on you today. So
Okay.
then, my attention is now split between you and my job. And so we're in this, unfortunately, we were trying to, it's logistics of kids and dentists and this and that. And I'm 300 miles away from you and all this stuff, et cetera. And all sorts of stuff is happening. It throws me off my game.
I also have work during the day too, you
Well,
know.
I understand, Alice, but you're not doing a performance for, thousands of people.
No, I'm
And then
just
we get talking to
talking
the
to the
Ukraine guy,
CEO of the company about reports and stuff. That's all on a Zoom call. That's very much easier to handle dentist appointments and logistics and things while I'm doing that. So, I get it. Totally fair that it's all on me to do all those things.
So I'm multitasking as I'm doing my job, talking to mostly friendlies, and then the second hour of the show, I essentially three callers in a row essentially just wiped the floor with me. I lost my footing. I didn't have facts at my finger. I couldn't get any of my links and my notes, etc. in time. I was frazzled, and
Because of me.
I blame it. I think you knocked me off balance early on today, and then a couple of callers who, credit to them, had their stuff together. And one I saw, I knew what was coming too because I heard him give the exact call on another station. So I said, "Oh, I'm ready for this." Wasn't ready. I couldn't get anything near me. I couldn't recall anything. All on the subject of energy. So I got KO'd in my own show today for 1 hour. I only it's I just didn't. It was one of these days where I didn't have it. Just didn't have it. So, but then the rest of the show is just fine, etc. But it is an interesting thing, and I'm going to talk about it tomorrow too, because
About me?
no, no, but no, I'm not going to talk about you. I'm going to talk about having callers run circles around you when you're. I mean, I'm a hack, and sometimes
You get caught.
right, sometimes I get caught. And there's no shame in being a hack. All my favorite radio people are hacks. But I'm not a nuclear engineer, yet I talk about nuclear stuff all the time. I'm not any of these things, obviously, but I talk about it all the time. But sometimes you're the goalie. It doesn't have it that day. He's not standing on his head, as you would say. So that's what today was for 1 hour. And I should have had my ducks in. Nothing was coming. Even when I saw something. I knew what to say in advance. It just was one of those things. Sometimes, even the greats, Alice, get knocked down.
Wow.
And then I got another call with now the regulars are the WTIC Mafia callers are upset because the new rule is that they're only allowed to call in once a day. They used to call in once a show. And there's a new rule now by management that says they have to call in once a day.
So they have to choose whose show they get to call into?
Right. So our friend Rudy called in and he said, "Hey, I don't like this that I only can call in once a day. That means that I'm going to go somewhere else to other shows." And I didn't have a good excuse for him. I didn't have a good explanation. I mean, but I was just one of those days. I had no good explanations for anybody or anything. You never know those days. You never know because I was locked and loaded with stuff. I didn't even get to all the stuff I wanted to get to. It was a lot of a layup show, and at the same time, I would put myself if I were a caller, a P1 and a caller, I would also be pissed off.
Oh yeah, I used to call him when it was WTKK in Boston, which was the short-lived. Well, I guess not that short-lived, but in radio time, relatively short-lived FM talk station that was here in Boston that Tom used to be on when I met him. I used to call in like to all the shows.
every
Like,
day.
not every day, but I mean, like, if I was listening, throughout the day and they were saying something I wanted to weigh in on, I would call in, first to one show and then to the next show. Jim and like, sure, why not? I
Yeah.
haven't enlightened this set of hosts with my wisdom
Oh
yet.
God. You look great, Alice. Do you have?
Thanks.
Are you using one of the a real light?
No, I cannot find the right pieces to make the real light work.
Oh right.
However, you know what I am using? The desk light that you got me.
Oh, it works well.
Um, yeah, I have it like right next to the little ship on the side table, like shining down on me right near me. So yeah, it works out pretty well. It looks good, I think.
Nice. I'm not going to get inappropriate again with you, but
But then
that
I have my Gimme Your Napoleon shirt.
yeah, I noticed that. I noticed that, Alice. My goodness, it looks so suggestive
What do
that
you
it means
mean?
something else, and the fact that there's a in between the two heaving mounds, there's this like brown thing as well. Like, what exactly is going on there? But I know it's inappropriate.
Do I need to redesign this shirt?
No, it's perfect, believe me. Guys, I think no man watching will have any problem with it. I don't think any lady will either.
You're making me uncomfortable now.
Well,
I
now
didn't-
you know how I felt after getting browbeat by you today during this show. You see, now let's debate energy policy. So, as far as stuff going on in the world, I'm starting to not like Zelensky. He
I
all
told
this
you last week. I think I'm suspicious of this whole thing where we're all supposed to be in love with him, just like we were all supposed to be in love with Cuomo back in March of 2020. Like, I don't like when we all have a mass psychosis at the same time and decide to like the same thing all at once. Like, it's weird to me. So I've always been suspicious of it. I don't like the idea that we're all supposed to be in love with him. I think it's weird. But what in
and it's
particular has raised your ire today?
he said a few things like this recently, and I'm like I don't like it. He said, Zelensky in late night address tonight slams NATO over um ruling out no fly zone. This is the self hypnosis of those who are weak, insecure inside, despite the fact that they possess weapons many times stronger than we have. It's like, dude, go F yourself. Leave.
Yeah, sorry, we don't want to be in a
Yeah.
nuclear war over
Yeah.
your country. Like, heaven
Well,
forbid we
sure,
not get him.
there's stuff going on right now. I understand, but it's so jerky. It's like immediately, oh, you're all weak minded. Weak minded. Wait, I would use a little more honey in your, in treating
Yeah,
it.
and didn't he say that like all the deaths from now on are on all
Yeah,
of us? Like, oh,
like
excuse
stop,
me, I
shut up.
thought they were on Putin. Like,
Jesus.
I didn't kill anybody in Ukraine. My goodness. But yeah, when people said that Biden's foreign policy was one of the causes of this whole situation, everybody got yelled at and said like, how dare we blame Biden? This is totally Putin's fault. You can't put the responsibility on this for these deaths on Biden. That's ridiculous. It's all Putin's fault. Putin's the only one responsible. How dare you, right? But when everybody's boy crush Zelensky gets on TV and tells us that it's the Western world's fault, then all these hawks decide that we
Right.
absolutely have to do a no-fly zone because Zelensky said we're responsible for all the deaths otherwise. You know, I I think I don't know. How do you feel about the comparisons to World War II and like in Hitler? Because obviously, World War II is always used as the example of sort of the war that it was definitely good that we got involved in and stopped Hitler. Right. And people who didn't want us, I mean, that was like a pretty mainstream opinion also in the lead up to us joining World War II, that people didn't want us in the war, right?
Well,
So
of course.
I mean, like, how do you when people act like this is going to be World War II in the sometime in the future, when history looks back on this and says like this is a war that we're ultimately going to get in, like I feel like when people make comparisons to World War II and Hitler, and I think that what they're trying to say is this is a war that we're ultimately going to have to get involved in, and because they think Putin's going to go further, right? And that it's a war that history is going to look back and say we should have gotten involved in and should have gotten involved in even sooner. That you know, because I think that that's like kind of how World War II is viewed, but I don't know that that's going to be the case here.
I mean, you said, and I meant to bring it up today, although I was rattled because I got yelled at, but you said that you thought that somebody would use a nuke. Well, and that's not
Yeah, I
something.
said it on the show yesterday, didn't I?
Yeah,
Yeah.
but that's not something we had to worry about with Hitler. I mean,
Right, that's true. That was
uh,
not part of the equation.
right? Although he wanted it to be, but still, I mean, I don't. I'm with the UFC guy we played yesterday. I don't trust our
Yeah.
side
Well,
enough.
most of our listeners didn't hear that. We only played that on the
Oh, is that
Patreon
true? Why don't we
show.
play it now? Is that okay?
Yeah. Yeah, we can go ahead and play that again. That
I'm
the
glad.
this
I'm
guy,
glad.
we
We
played
should.
this on our Patreon show yesterday, but you should definitely all hear this because I was thinking about this sound clip after the fact too. Like, I mean, just really, what a brilliant speech, beginning to end, so on point, so thoughtful, and like just inspiring. And I don't know, it stuck in my head for sure.
Same here. This is Bryce Mitchell. He's a UFC fighter.
I just wanted to get your thoughts on the whole Russia and Ukraine situation.
You know, here's my first thought: is I'm not going nowhere to fight none of these wars for these politicians. I'm staying at home, and when the war comes to Arkansas, I will dig my boots in the ground, and I will die for everything I love, and I will not retreat. If this country's in,
So let's just stop right there. First of all, that sounds like a guy who means every freaking word he just said.
Right.
He sounds like that is a man. My bull detector is not going off. This sounds like a dude with some core principles.
Well, right. More than most people I know, I think. I mean, like, would you say that about Massachusetts?
No, I don't have to say, like, I don't have the dig my boots in the ground thing. I would be everybody. The world would stop and everybody would point at me and say, "Fraud, please." Dig your boots in the ground."
invaded, and everybody's saying, "Well, we gotta evacuate. We gotta leave. I will not. I will dig my boots in the Arkansas soil, and I will fight for the people that I love, for the land that I love, and the way of life that I love. But I'm not going overseas to fight. I don't know what's going on, to be honest, brother. I really don't. There's so much stuff, and I don't think nobody knows what's going on fully. There's been so much political corruption in that area. You got Biden and his son making a ton of money off of and using our tax dollars to bribe their people. That's treasonous, in my opinion. So you got Hunter Biden and his son using our tax dollars. Hey, if Ukrainian government, if you don't do this, we're taking your tax dollars. He shouldn't be giving our tax dollars to that country anyway. We got veterans out here sleeping on the street, and you're going to give our freaking tax dollars to these Ukrainians and all. Brother, I don't know what's going on over there, but I'm not going over there and fighting. And God bless anybody that's over there that's fighting. And I hope that this just gets solved. And man, I don't like war. You know what I mean? I don't want people dying and all that stuff. I don't want to be, but I don't know what's going on. There's so much stuff that I think that's corrupted that we just don't know what's truly going on over there. And I pray all those people are safe.
Hey, incredible. I agree completely. I mean, what are we gonna? We're gonna go all in for this particular conflict, which is, I know it's terrible, believe me. And I didn't play the sound on the show today. As a matter of fact, I know it's terrible and awful, and the fact that you've got kids who are in shelters. Did you hear the girl sing "Let It Go"?
Yes, I did see that one.
Isn't it beautiful? Listen.
Закрой все чувства на замок, навечно отпусти и забудь, что прошло уже не вернуть. Отпусти и забудь, новый день он кажет путь. Не боюсь ничего уже. Пусть бы шум ничто, холод всегда мне был по душе.
I think that's great, isn't it? But the
Yeah.
fact that you put this little 5-year-old, in some bomb shelter somewhere, and this is awful stuff. They're murdering people. It's awful stuff. I think that what we're doing is what we should be doing is giving them guns, having the Polish give them planes and backfill the Polish, and give them more ammo and javelins and stingers and whatever they need to do to give the Russians hell. Already, this has been a loss for Putin. I mean, this was not as this was supposed to go. The convoy is still holed up, and it has not gone well. But I don't think you can't. If we go to war with Putin, unless somebody whacks him, he's going to fire a nuke or more, and then it's all over. And for what? The cost benefit just doesn't work out.
Yeah, it's not going to work out for the Ukrainians either if there's a nuclear war. I mean, like that's the problem here. So the problem is that it's hard to know when you're dealing with a Hitler situation where you'll be glad you got into the war and did what you did, and when you're dealing with an Afghanistan situation when it seems like a good idea at the time and like it makes sense, but then 20 years later everybody seems to think we never should have gone at all, right? And I mean, like, how are you supposed to know in the moment, like, how history is going to look back on something? And you see these videos, it's obviously heart-wrenching. It's obviously terrible what's going on there. It's also terrible what's going on in China to the Uyghurs. It's also but that we see less of on the news. There are terrible wars in the Middle East, terrible wars in Africa. There are people, I mean, like a mosque got blown up the other day too, and a bunch of people were killed. But that wasn't on the news. That's just as horrific. Those bodies are just as mangled and just as dead, and it's just as tragic for their families. There's so much freaking tragedy and horror in the world that it can be paralyzing. What I'm suspicious of is when the entire media and culture gets universally at the same time focused on a particular tragedy and horror and wants you to do something about it right now, right? It's the same thing as like right after the mass shooting when they all want to like do something about this right at this moment, and like there's all the terrible heart-wrenching pictures, and obviously they're heart-wrenching. Everything about it is extremely sad and it's extremely terrible, and it's like but I get suspicious when the entire media and political establishment is trying to ask me to throw out any sense of caution or principle or ideas about what's a good thing to do and what's a good plan just because we're seeing terrible images. And I tend to think that when you're in a heightened emotional state about something is not actually the best time to make a decision about it. That's like not actually, that right after the mass shooting is like
Right.
not actually the most clear-headed time to be making gun policy. That right when we're getting flooded with these crazy images of what's going on in Ukraine is the right time to make a decision, because this is obviously, a lot of this is propaganda. Like the Snake Island stuff was propaganda. A lot of these things are, designed for Western consumption. I don't know. The little girl in the subway obviously is heart-wrenching. I don't know, or the bomb shelter, wherever she was. I know a lot of people are in subways as bomb shelters too, but I don't know to what extent that was like a coordinated effort to put that out there, and I don't know to what extent like I don't know if that little girl's life is going to be better or not if we set up a no-fly zone over there, because if we turn Europe into a nuclear wasteland, I don't think that's going to be great for her either.
Right.
And
And it's obviously, if you were a marketing firm, that's exactly what you'd put out there.
of course.
It's a worldwide known song. It's a very Western song. American little girls will know that. Have little girls sing there. Who knows? The only thing I can verify about that is that it is the melody to Let It Go. Other than that, everything gets
Well, right.
yourself.
Well,
But
right.
also,
This
why
stuff
would
is,
we be-
and it bothers me. I'm almost more suspicious of this entire thing because, exactly because this seems so professionally done. Everything about this, every heart-wrenching video clip looks like it was put out by a PR firm to do this. Like it seems very like very well packaged for Western audiences to pull at the heartstrings, right? There was a protest in France too that was designed to pull at not your heartstrings necessarily, but at the Tom Shaddicks of the world.
I endorse that protest. I think it's great. It was a bunch of ladies who were shirtless and had
The
it
Ukrainian
wouldn't kill you
flag
to do that,
painted
Alice,
on
to be
their
honest.
chest.
To
What?
be honest, it wouldn't kill you to do that. To be honest, you'd probably
I
fight
don't
it.
have anything that I need to protest about shirtless. Thank you.
It's for Ukraine, Alice. Today we're all Ukrainian. I call it Ukraine strong.
Slava Ukraini.
You know.
Hmm.
Yeah, but yes, the Parisian women were protesting, and I'm all for that kind of protest, obviously. But another reason why you wonder, you take a step back, is like we're sending Kamala Harris over there. We're sending her to do what exactly? Because is she going to be mediating talks between people? Are we sure she has the horsepower to handle something like that?
That take children to school and parents to work. Imagine all the heavy duty vehicles that keep our supply lines strong and allow our economy to grow. Imagine that they produced zero emissions. Well, you all imagined it. That's why we're here today. Because we have the ability to see what can be, unburdened by what has been, and then to make the possible actually happen.
Holy God.
So glad she's in charge of energy policy. So glad. And I'm glad you brought up her going on about these green trucks. Imagine if all the trucks were making zero emissions, which I don't even think, like, even if the trucks are running on electric, I don't think there are zero emissions. First of all, unless you're charging them on something that's zero emissions. And second of all, doesn't making things out of steel have emissions? I mean, I don't know that much
Yeah,
about
I think
that, but
so.
I think it does. Like, I think that you cause emissions just by making the trucks, but what do I know? Anyway, it's obviously silly. We are not there. The biggest electric car guy in the country, who obviously would love this to be possible, that we 100% switch to electric vehicles tomorrow, says we need to increase oil and gas production right now. So, that just should tell you right there. But I'm glad you bring up energy policy, because there is a new narrative out there. Someone just actually texted me saying, like, why are all my Democrat friends telling me right now that the gas prices have nothing to do with Biden and it's all because of Ukraine, and it's Forbes wrote it up and they're supposedly right-leaning. I challenge that Forbes is right-leaning
They're
anyway,
not right
but
leaning. This is what one of the guys who pummeled me today used.
yeah, but they've obviously all the non-player characters have downloaded the talking points about the Forbes write-up and the Biden and everybody, all the Democrats that I know are all saying this, like, the energy prices have nothing to do with Joe Biden. It's all because of this Ukraine thing that was totally preventable and all this stuff.
Yes, there are more licenses to drill than ever before.
Yeah, all these things he's been doing. Okay, this was predictable. First of all, we all predicted this. I mean, we didn't predict Putin invading Ukraine specifically, but everybody predicted that shutting down the Keystone Pipeline would harm our energy independence, that that renewable energy sources were not there yet to replace this, that we needed to keep up our energy independence to not be beholden to bad actors in the world. I mean, like, this was known and preventable, and we could have talked about this, but we get to see Joe and Kamala going to electric boat factories and electric truck places, and Biden gets to drive the electric Ford truck so that he can look cool, and but that it's not actually doing. How many people do you know who are driving an electric Ford truck right now?
Well, not too many. Mostly
Yeah.
none.
So, that's just, it's not real life yet. So Kamala can go out here and say these, platitudes about this stuff, but it's just not true that this stuff exists. Meanwhile, I like to check in on my dear, very woke friends from time to time to see how things are going, and they've found, obviously, with the high gas price stuff, new things to find offensive about all this, because a bunch of good liberals have been making fun of people who are upset about high gas prices, saying that they don't care about Ukraine, that they're just gas guzzlers and they don't care. So my my even more liberal friend writes, "Why is everyone making fun of truck owners in response to high gas prices? Poor people have cars too, regular sized ones, and cannot afford high gas prices. Why are we ignoring that? I don't get it." And Yeah, somebody replies, I've seen nothing but jokes about the gas. I've had nothing but anxiety because we start a new job tomorrow and to and from work every day. Here we go again. We're going to be facing homelessness and we can't even afford the gas to get to and from work. I really wish Russia would nuke us and then I wouldn't have to do this fight anymore.
That's great.
Somebody else replies, effing thank you. We have an 8-gallon tank and it cost me nearly $30 to fill her up yesterday. That's over a week of food.
Alice, you know what? She wears the 8-gallon tank for you.
I can see this
You
woman
know?
with the 8-gallon tank. She eats more than $30 worth of food per
What
week.
the hell did you just say?
I mean, there's no way she's only eating $30. If she were eating $30, well, okay. Anyway.
Alice!
Somebody else says, cost me almost $50 to fill up my tank, which I have to do almost every week. So then the slightly less woke person says, the high gas prices are a result of the Russian invasion. There's a large overlap between people who own trucks and people making Putin's atrocities about themselves because of gas prices. I'm suffering with gas prices too, but my problems are tiny compared to the Ukrainian people.
What was
And
the other
then,
one? I hope Russia would just nuke us?
yes, to end her having to fill up her car with gas.
Can you read it again?
I've seen nothing but jokes about the gas, and I've had nothing but anxiety because we start a new job tomorrow, and it's to and from work every day. Here we go again. We're going to be facing homelessness, and we can't even afford gas to get to and from work. I really just wish Russia would nuke us, and then I wouldn't have to do this fight anymore. I guarantee you would have bigger problems if Russia nuked us. I don't think he's going to aim the nuke right at you. So there's going to be more problems that you're going to have to cope with. Trust me. Bigger problems than having to fill up your car to go to work. So then somebody else wants to explain here. Because unlike cars, the majority of those giant trucks were not bought as truly functional, but as ego-boosting, masculinity-proving toys.
Right. Well, it stand for lynchings, I assume.
Probably. The car companies have been making bigger and bigger trucks for no real useful purpose for decades. A lot of them actually have a smaller cab, proving that smaller trucks can do the same work that the bigger new ones can for a lot less in gas costs. If someone buys something purely to inflame their own insecure sense of self and then gets hit with exorbitant costs to upkeep them, it's their own fault. But as a side note,
Wellesley have found the secret sauce to why the trucks are selling so well.
I know. It's always that's all liberals have in the holster to come up with why you would want a truck or why you would want a gun or why you would want anything else that they don't want is because you're insecure about that. But as a side note, everyone should start considering transportation alternatives. Taking the bus is not a scary thing. In fact, I have done it for most of my adult life, even when I had a car. And most trips can be done by one bus ride. People who live here think nothing about walking a couple of miles during a parade, but can't imagine going a few blocks to the store on foot.
That's great. I mean, who is changing, Alice? Who is changing? Ever heard of Fairfield University?
I know you were talking about it today, but I didn't have a chance to catch up on Fairfield University. No.
So let me just play a little bit of the news wrap for Fairfield University in Connecticut, Fox is doing, because I want you to meet somebody who I think we should try to have her join that group that you were just reading about.
Solidarity in Bridgeport today as Fairfield University students join members of the Black Lives Matter movement in speaking out against the school's decision to remove the Black Lives Matter flag from campus. The students meeting with Reverend
that noise was something in the studio fell.
Heron Gaston, who led a recent Black Lives Matter march. They say they're upset the administration ordered a flag be taken down at its counseling center. The students telling us
So a bunch of white grad students, chicks, girls, ladies, are very upset that this happened. They're and one of them, and now I'm allowed to talk about appearance, Alice, because I'm a man of girth.
Mm-hmm.
One of the ladies, who's a grad student, is of size, I would say. She's a healthy, according to Health and Fitness magazine. What was the one?
Self magazine, I think, or Shape, maybe.
Shape magazine's criteria. She is absolutely in shape. And Alice, unfortunately, highly unfortunately, her name is Tiffany Tubby. Now, not because of Tiffany, but I will just say, let me see if I can see what your facial expression is right now.
My facial expression?
Yes. Okay, so her
What?
name is Tiffany Tubby. She may be a couple of pounds overweight. It's possible. But here's
I thought
Tiffany
there was
Tubby.
no such thing as that anymore.
Here's Tiffany Tubby. She is salty about the university taking down a Black Lives Matter flag.
Is she black?
No, of course not.
Oh.
None of the girls interviewed in this are. One is here's Whitney Keys, who seems to be about 46, but she's a grad student there. She'll warm up for Tiffany. Here you go.
To use neutrality as a argument for doing something so baseless is standing with the side of oppressors and choosing oppression over inclusion.
Well, I think actually to use neutrality is actually just using neutrality. I don't think it is baseless. It's baseful.
It's like a mangled, I think it's an MLK quote.
But it's not baseless. It's actually based on the neutrality guidelines. It's absolutely totally based. There's no doubt about that. So then I'm going to bring you to Tiffany Tubby, and this is why Tiffany should hang out with those ladies that you were just talking about who want us nuked.
As a future social worker who's graduating in May, I hold a whole set of values and ethics to do no harm. White silence is doing harm, and I don't want to be part of that.
Oh, sorry, it's Desmond Tutu. If you are neutral in situations of injustice, you have chosen the side of the oppressor.
Shut up,
yes,
Desmond.
Sorry.
Okay, are you not listening to Tiffany Tubby? Let me
I was listening. Okay.
Play it again. Don't listen anything up for the next 2 seconds.
Okay.
As a future social worker who's graduating in May, I hold a whole set of values and ethics to do no harm. White silence is doing harm, and I don't want to be part of that.
That's Tiffany?
Tiffany Tubby. White silence is doing harm, and I don't want to be because she's got a whole set of standards you don't understand.
I thought it's hard though, because if you talk too much about it too, then aren't you centering a white voice?
Well, all I know is that white silence means harm. White silence could also just be you shutting the hell up, because the rest of us are doing real things, and we're not at Fairfield University making pretend that we're part of the social justice movement. But Tiffany Tubby doesn't care about that. She feels really important, and she's a future social worker. I'm shocked about that. I'm shocked that she's a future social worker. God.
Yeah, probably coming to an elementary school near you. There's almost nothing more revealing about the state of public schools in general, like across the whole country, than the reaction to this bill that DeSantis has, the Don't Say Gay bill, which is, I mean, if I weren't for the bill before, I sure would be watching that protesting against the bill.
I believe, Alice, if it's my understanding, literally the legalese begins with you can't say gay.
No, the legalese is you can't talk about sexuality to kindergartners through, I believe, third graders, and that sex education for older kids has to be developmentally appropriate. That's
what if you get off on that sort of thing?
What if you want to tell the kindergartners about sex and gender?
Just to stimulate yourself. Is there no consideration there for those?
No consideration was put in for those people. You cannot talk to the kindergartners about sex. So if I weren't already for that 100%, watching how upset it makes a bunch of educators, big air quotes on that, and other school personnel, watching how upset it makes them that they can't talk to the kindergartners about sex and gender would make me want to pull my kids out of the schools all over again. I mean, there was a lot of noise made about this like college wokeness stuff. I mean, years ago. You've been in talk radio and in the news, so everyone's been making hay out of it for a long time. And the standard response from the left was always sort of like, oh, it's just in college campuses. It's not real life. What is it to you if they have trigger warnings and safe spaces and intersectionality on the college campuses? Who cares? Like, it's not affecting you. Stop complaining, right? And there's been more noise made about it now as it's moved into boardrooms and corporations and the diversity trainings that people are getting, just in their businesses, as this generation that was educated like this in college has started to enter the workforce and demand that people start like putting pronouns in their email signatures and stuff. I assume I'll have to have like what tribal land I'm occupying in my email signature by like this time next year. But or even sooner. I mean, stuff's moving pretty fast here, much less a description of what I look like on my Zoom call avatar. But, you know, I think that it's sort of been lost in the shuffle between the college kids and the corporate, uh, versions of this madness, that it's already taken incredibly strong root in our public schools, right? And I frankly, I don't even know if these bills that these governors are doing in a lot of states are going to be enough to combat this. Like, I almost think you have to just defund the public schools and start over, because this stuff is insidious. It's infected the brains of half the people or more who work in these school districts. They are insane, and they are going to damage your child psychologically. I mean, intentionally. This is the point of what they're doing here, is to, you know, cripple your child's psychological development with not just the gender and stuff, the race stuff, like all these things. I really think that it is completely toxic. And I think that there hasn't been any attention on how rapidly this has been spreading in the schools. And, just in the last year or so, really since like the George Floyd stuff, and people started to have a language to talk about what they were seeing in the schools, this, the CRT language and the wokeness language, and ways to describe this stuff that's happening in schools. But, it's not enough to try and take it out of the curriculum when you have a huge number of the people who work in the school buildings totally devoted to this weird religious cult. They all need like deprogramming. It's crazy what is happening in the schools. And like, when you see the reactions to stuff like this, like to this bill that DeSantis did, then you see that this is already a sickness that has taken hold. This is not something where you can just like say we're not going to do this going forward. These people are all like mentally ill now. Do you have the video of them singing in the hallway, or whatever, chanting in the
I do.
hallways?
Hold on one second.
So, but yeah, I mean, and this again, it's like the reactions to the bills where you tell teachers that they can't teach kids that like one race is responsible for like other things people of their race have done in the past, and they like wig out and say that you're trying to like prevent kids from knowing about slavery, which is absurd. Totally absurd. And then you see the reaction to something like this, where he says you can't teach the kindergartners about sex, and they have like a total meltdown. A total meltdown.
Here's the students about DeSantis. Not exactly really well done, but you get it.
What about the ones where they're chanting like say gay or whatever, as they're like dancing through the hallway? Those women. Yeah. I mean, like, this is unhinged. These protests are happening in school hallways, is my understanding, correct?
Yes.
And these are people that are employed by or students of the schools, correct?
Right.
I mean, that's insane behavior. It's totally nuts behavior, and all these people should be fired for not doing their jobs. Like, just teach the kids. What are you doing here? I don't understand the need to turn the entire school system. I mean, I understand they've turned the entire school system into an arm of their weird cult theology. It's messed up, and I don't know where public schools are going to go from here, frankly.
Well, which is why it's so great that that Christina Pushaw has been on the show, or has she?
She's been on the 1570 Project, which I need to restart.
She went out and accused, and this was great, accused progressives of wanting to groom people.
Of course. If you want to talk to kindergartners about your sexuality, then you want to groom people. Like, I'm sorry, that's just what it is. I don't know why people have trouble like with that concept.
Right. And so DeSantis apparently had it out. I'm just looking. I'm sorry about this. I got distracted myself, Alice, because I had people asking for my podcast, and the last one that was for the show, for my radio show, was uploaded on last Thursday. So it's excellent.
Oh.
It's excellent. It always makes me pleased. That's great. Considering I wanted you to hear something from today, but that's not going to happen. That's fine. And that's fine. I'll be fine tomorrow. It's fine. All right. So, but hold on. Death sentence was today on a roll, apparently. Let me find this here. Sorry. Tom Shattuck, Alice Shattuck, Burn Barrel. Hold on. Are you ready?
Yeah, I'm ready. I'm so ready. I've never been more ready for a sound cut in my life.
You're ready for something. All right, hold on. What?
You have a problem. Stop it.
Okay, let me make sure it's.
Are you going to play an audio clip or?
Yes, hold on. Shh.
Does it say that in the bill? Does it say that in the bill? I'm asking you to tell me what's in the bill because you are pushing false narratives. It doesn't matter what critics say. For who? For grades pre-K through 3. So 5-year-olds, 6-year-olds, 7-year-olds. And the idea that you wouldn't be honest about that and tell people what it actually says, it's why people don't trust people like you because you peddle false narratives. And so we disabuse you of those narratives. And we're going to make sure that parents are able to send their kid to kindergarten without having some of this stuff injected into their school curriculum.
Well, here you go. Obviously, this guy should be president right now. It's a shame that we're going to have to get 3
I don't
more
know if our country's going to make it to the next president, to be perfectly honest with you. There's I mean, we've arrived at the prospect of global thermonuclear war a lot faster than I would have anticipated when Biden was elected. We're only a year in, and I don't know. And Kamala's no better. Imagine if Kamala was president right now.
I don't know that it would matter. I don't know that it matter. I mean,
Biden at least. I mean, can you play the Kamala cut? I don't think we played this on our show, even though I tweeted about it. The Kamala cut. She appeared on a podcast and was asked to explain what's going on in Ukraine.
Social media, you're seeing everything that's going on right now in the Ukraine. Break it down in layman's terms for people who don't understand what's going on and how can this directly affect the people of the United States.
So Ukraine is a country in Europe. It exists next to another country called Russia. Russia is a bigger country. Russia is a powerful country. Russia decided to invade a smaller country called Ukraine. So basically that's wrong.
If you're watching any level of news.
Yeah. I mean, all that was accurate. I'll say that for it. Nothing in there was strictly untrue. But I don't know if that's quite what he meant by layman's terms.
Right.
He didn't say explain it like I'm 3. He said layman's terms, which I would think you could go into a little more depth, but I'm not sure Kamala has more depth on that.
No, I don't think she does. The other thing that's come to the fore today is the squad. They all have spent a lot of money on private security, including Ayanna Pressley. They're all for the defund the police, but Ayanna Pressley, I think, has spent over $50,000.
Well, but their personal protection, I'm sure, doesn't carry any deadly weapons or anything of that sort.
Well, they do, I think. And Cori Bush was asked about hers. Sorry.
Congresswoman, if you support defunding the police, why are you paying for your own security? I'm sorry, ma'am. Do you have any comment on why you want to defund the police, but you're paying for your own security? You want to take resources away, but you're providing them for yourself?
Yeah, and of course she does, and that was actually from last year. But you get the point, and that's what's going on now. It's like everybody. It's always nobody believes a goddamn thing that they are saying.
Well, and to be fair, they have absolutely the right to get private security for themselves if they want it. I'm sure they get death threats, and there's all kinds of crazy people out there. The problem is that a lot of people can't afford to spend tens of thousands of dollars a year on private security, and those people need there to at least be some semblance of law enforcement in their communities in order to survive day to day and know that their business isn't going to be ransacked, which is what's going on now for everywhere from Connecticut to California, right? Is that criminals have complete free reign because the police know that their hands are tied on all this stuff. They can't do anything about most of it anymore. From psychotic DAs and just like crazy politicians. They know they're going to get blamed. They know they're going to get thrown under the bus the second anything happens. They don't want to be put in the position to have to wonder if they're going to go to jail for like trying to protect a store owner from criminals, you know. And who can blame them? Or they're getting out of the police force altogether. And why wouldn't you? Why wouldn't you at this point when you're demonized like this? It's so funny. It's so funny how the left thinks they have like a right to other people's services, just like they think they have like a right to health care, which fundamentally means that they have a right to be able to make doctors do something for them, right? And it's the same with like the police, because when you point out that all this talk of defund the police and all the Black Lives Matter protests have led to police officers quitting, low department morale, police officers not wanting to do their jobs anymore, like not going to the bad neighborhoods because they don't want to get into a situation that's going to end up with them on trial, that, you know, the liberals will go like, well, they should have thought about that before they signed up. Like they should have known that this was part of the job and comes with the territory and blah, blah, blah. It's like they think they have the right to be protected by people who they hate and yell at and say they're bastards like every day. It's crazy to me. Like, people aren't going to put up with that. People have free choice whether or not to join a police force, and they're going to end up not choosing it, which means that you're going to have a labor shortage unless you increase what you're paying cops, unless you raise the wages. So but liberals just don't believe in market forces. They think they can have their cake and eat it too all the time.
Yeah, well, and just too many people have gone absolutely nuts.
2 more hogs got the fever.
Millions of Americans got the fever, Albie. Allison, what are you up to tonight, Dougie?
I'm just gonna clean up some stuff, make a big salad. All things like that. Are you not listening to me through your headphones? Because I'm hearing you on an echo.
You are?
Yeah. I'm hearing me on an echo.
How
like
about
I'm coming
now?
through
Are you
again.
still hearing you on an echo?
Well, it's okay. Anyway, just joys of using StreamYard, I guess.
Is it still echoing right now?
I don't know. No, it's not now.
This has gone reversed, hasn't it? Was I like this earlier? Oh.
I think you moved it.
Oh, did I? Well, I hit the button that Cullen used to make me hit when he started hearing echoes. So now that button's been hit. Now I think we should be okay. Or is there an echo? Who knows?
I don't hear an echo of me anymore.
We just got a car out of the snow, and it was so tough to do. I have not been so exhausted. Thankfully that I am ripped from Planet Fitness, because that kicked our asses. So now I'm going to go. You look very lovely, Alice. I mean, need you to stay after class on StreamYard. Seriously. Do I have that power?
I don't know. We'll discuss it once the broadcast ends.
The broadcast. All right, Albie. Mangy. The music's going, just so you know.
I can't hear it.
Trust me. All right, find us on Dingleford at tomshattuck.com. You can get me at microsoft.com.tomshattuck.net. You can also find us on champion.com and friendliesicecream.com.net.us.